She texted, "I will come back when I want." I sent one photo and changed the locks. The photo was a still from my porch camera. Elise on her tiptoes, fingers in Owen Vale's medic jacket. The kiss short and focused like a crime you plan to forget. Timestamp on the corner like a badge number. It was my porch, my camera, my footage. Legal as a stop sign and meaner. The image had that crisp kind of truth that doesn't need commentary. Her face half-shadowed, his hand hovering like he was about to do the decent thing and pull away, but didn't. I didn't send a message with it. Just the file. A picture speaks, they say. I let this one prosecute. 10 minutes later, she was on the stoop, crying and begging, hands flat on the glass, her breath fogging little circles that bloomed and died. The smart lock pulsed red. A neat box sat by her shoes. 2 sweaters, a toothbrush, a power cord, the house key I had copied the week we moved in and labeled with a black marker. I had packed them carefully, not because I was gentle, but because I like things tidy even when they're falling apart. I did not raise my voice. I did not list her sins like a clerk. I said, "Step back from the door so the camera doesn't catch your face full frame." "Please, Nate," she said. "Please, we cannot do this out here." "We are doing it out here," I said. "In there is mine, out here is also mine, but I can air it out." She winced at that. Satisfying, in a cheap way that felt like biting a lip until you tasted metal. I kept my hands in my jacket pockets, the same way I do during inspections when a homeowner starts explaining why the railing never really mattered. The camera blinked a small red light. Patient witness. Across the street, the Petrowskis sat in their living room window with a phone held vertical, turning my private moment into town television. "Please," she said, "we can talk like adults." "I am talking like an adult," I said. "You are talking like a press release." "That is cruel." "It is accurate," I said. She looked past me, into the house, and I saw the exact second she realized I had changed the entry code. The old code had been our anniversary date, because I am sentimental and stubborn. The new code was city standard random. I watched her do the math and lose. She stooped, picked up the box, and left the porch like a person backing out of a parking spot she did not pay for. She did not look back. The camera did. Inside, I turned off the foyer light and sat at the kitchen table with my inspection notebook. I wrote the date and time and a heading. Exhibit A, porch cam still. Then I wrote 3 lines I would need later if my temper tried to rewrite facts. 1. My porch. 2. My camera. 3. One-party consent for my voice. I underlined the 3rd because people like to forget the rules right when they are most useful. Unknown number pinged a minute later. "You think this makes you a man." I typed, "Your car is leaking. Send." It was not leaking. Not yet. But I wanted that thought rattling around in his head the next time he parked. I made coffee I did not need and changed the smart lock code again, because paranoia is a habit in my line of work. Homes lie in small ways. People lie in big ones. I sleep better when I can account for the small lies. The coffee sat untouched, cooling beside the inspection notebook. I flipped through the older pages, notes on houses that had nothing to do with me, rusted joists, warped beams, water stains under fresh paint, signs that something had been covered, disguised, prettied up for the buyer. Elise used to say my job made me cynical. She said it like it was a condition I'd caught from the drywall dust and couldn't shake. But she liked it when that cynicism was pointed outward, toward other people's cracks, other people's foundations, not when it turned inward, not when it started asking questions about ours. I walked the house, not because there was anything to see, but because habit is a kind of sedation. The living room smelled like cedar polish and betrayal, her throw blanket still draped over the couch, soft pink, shedding little threads like fingerprints. The photo frames on the wall leaned at slightly different angles. I had hung them myself last spring, using a laser level, every corner perfect. Now they seemed crooked, even though the walls hadn't shifted. Sometimes the world tilts only in your head. The hallway light hummed faintly. The sound was barely there, but once you notice it, it burrows. I switched it off. Silence settled like dust. In the dark, I could still see her outline on the porch, hands pressed to the glass, breath marking time. The mind replays cruelty in high definition. I went upstairs. The bedroom was half empty now, the closet divided like a wound healing unevenly. Her side had a faint scent of lavender and static. I thought about taking her hangers down, but the gaps between them were punctuation marks, and I wasn't ready to delete the sentence. On her nightstand, she'd left a mug with dried tea leaves and a book spine down, some novel about forgiveness. I closed it, set it upright. Small order in the ruins. At midnight, the porch light flicked on. Motion sensor. I checked the monitor. A raccoon sniffed the stoop, nosing the box she'd left behind earlier but had returned to leave again, I realized. She must have come back, silent, after I'd gone upstairs. I went to the door, opened it just enough to see. Inside the box, now damp from dew, were the rest of her things. A framed photo of us from Lake Echo, a pair of gardening gloves, and a letter folded in thirds. I brought it in, sat at the table again. The letter wasn't long. Her handwriting was clean, deliberate, like she was filling out a form she wanted approved. Nate, I didn't plan it. I didn't stop it either. I thought about telling you before you saw, but I knew you'd see. You always do. You look for cracks even when you're home. Maybe especially then. You deserve someone who isn't scared of inspection. I'm sorry for being small. E. I read it twice, then placed it next to the still photo on my phone. Together, they told a story that didn't need me to add anything, facts lined up like studs in a wall. You could hang your grief on them and it would stay upright. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the porch chime she'd insisted on last summer. I had hated that sound at first, too cheerful, too artificial, but tonight it sounded like punctuation, a closing bracket on something that had already ended before either of us admitted it. I thought about Owen Vale, medic, ex-volunteer firefighter, local golden boy with a jawline that looked designed by a committee. He'd come by the house once when we first moved in to drop off a package delivered to his address by mistake. Elise had invited him in for a beer. I'd been out back measuring the fence line. When I came inside, the two of them were laughing at something on his phone. I'd told myself not to make a note of it. That's the thing about trust. It's quiet until it isn't. I didn't sleep that night. The coffee wore off, but my mind didn't. At 2 a.m., I found myself opening the footage again, rewinding, pausing, zooming, looking for hesitation, a flinch, anything that might tell me it wasn't deliberate. The pixelation at her jawline, the way she leaned in first. Facts again. Frames don't lie. People do. By morning, the sky was the color of dull aluminum. I showered, shaved, and went to work. Inspections start early. Nobody wants a stranger poking around their attic after lunch. The first house was a new build on Old County Road. Contractor claimed it was move-in ready. It wasn't. Nothing ever is. I found a cracked vent stack, improper joist spacing, a deck ledger bolted through vinyl siding like a wound dressed wrong. I took photos, logged defects, wrote notes. The work steadied me. Truth in measurements, in lines that either meet code or don't. At lunch, I parked near the river, rolled down the window, and listened to the mill's ghost hum. Milford smells like wet paper and diesel no matter where you stand. A heron skimmed the water, indifferent. I thought about calling her, not to ask anything, just to hear if her voice still carried that soft hitch when she was about to cry. Instead, I called the locksmith again and scheduled a physical rekey. Digital locks fail. Metal doesn't. In the afternoon, the Petrowskis posted on the town Facebook page, "Prayers for Nate and Elise. Rough night on Elm." A blurry screenshot of my porch, lifted from their window video. Comments poured in, sympathy, speculation, sanctimony. Small towns feed on drama like mold on bread. I scrolled, read a few, stopped, deleted my account. Some silences you have to pay for. Days blurred. Work, eat, sleep, or the attempt of it. The house felt too clean, too catalog perfect. I started leaving a cup in the sink, a shirt on the chair, signs of life. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like her steps coming back, but they never did. Once, late evening, I thought I saw her car at the end of the street. Lights off, parked. I didn't check. Some ghosts are best left outside. 2 weeks later, I got a certified letter. Attorney letterhead. It wasn't about property, not yet, just a polite inquiry about shared possessions of sentimental value. Her phrasing, I could tell. I boxed the remaining items, 2 books, a ceramic bowl she'd made in a class, her mother's scarf, and shipped them to the return address. No note inside. I insured the package for $25, exactly what I thought it was worth in dollars, not memories. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer and watched the streetlights flicker on. A cat prowled by, tail twitching like a fuse. Somewhere down the block, laughter drifted from a backyard. The ordinary world, humming on schedule. I checked the lock one last time, the code reset again to something new I hadn't even memorized yet. Randomness is security. Weeks passed. I went through motions, reports filed, houses inspected, nights measured by how long I could avoid the porch camera feed. But I couldn't bring myself to delete the footage. Not yet. Not because I wanted to watch it again, but because it was proof that my memory hadn't exaggerated. Grief distorts, evidence anchors. Sometimes I caught myself wondering what she told people. Maybe that I'd been cold, that the house felt like an office, that I loved order more than her. Maybe all of it was true. Maybe she needed chaos to feel alive. I give structure. She wanted air. One evening, months later, the porch light blinked again. This time it wasn't motion. It was power surge from the storm rolling in. Thunder grumbled, low and tired. I stepped outside, smelled rain coming. The town was quiet. No watchers tonight. I leaned against the rail I'd built myself, solid, level, measured twice, the kind of thing that holds weight without complaint. I thought about how love starts like construction, plans, excitement, careful alignment, and ends like demolition. Slow, noisy, dust everywhere, neighbors peering through blinds. But when the sight clears, when you sweep the last nails and broken glass, there's just ground again, level, bare, ready for something else. Inside, the coffee maker blinked 12i from the power reset. I left it that way. Some things don't need setting right. I poured a drink, sat down, opened my notebook to the last entry, Exhibit A. I added one more line beneath it. 4. No re-entry without inspection. Then I closed the book, turned off the porch light, and let the house settle around me, honest in its emptiness. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? Morning came in bright and rude, the way it does after your life nosedives and the sun decides to throw a parade anyway. It wasn't light so much as interrogation. The blinds didn't help. I had sealed every edge, but light finds seams the way truth does. It leaks through. I sat on the edge of the bed, same position as last night, same clothes. The house had that hush that only comes when there's one toothbrush left in the holder. The coffee maker blinked 12 because I'd unplugged it in some fit of control. I plugged it back in and let it roar to life, the first sound of the day besides my pulse. I called the office and said I was on self-assigned field checks. Nobody questioned it. One perk of being the guy who checks decks and bleachers and CO detectors is nobody checks you unless something collapses. I do not let things collapse. That's my small religion. The town trusts me to make sure their bolts hold, their platforms don't buckle, their safety stickers mean something. It's a faith I return to when other faiths fail. I started with what was mine. Control is a list you work through slowly. The porch camera card cloned to 2 drives, labeled, dated, cross-verified. The interior cam clips reviewed to confirm I had not recorded anything illegal. No bedrooms, no bathrooms, nothing but foyer and living room, and those cameras were off last night because I am not a monster. The doorbell unit had sound. That is legal at my own door. I am a believer in clean lines. Laws, like beams, have load limits. You stay under them. You sleep at night. Elise's shared calendar still hung like an old scarf in my iCloud. Not a hack, a leftover, ghost data, the kind of digital lint people forget to clean. Meetings titled vague, PR brief, donor lunch, late meeting. The late meeting stacked neatly on nights when Owen worked the late EMT swing. Patterns are loud when you let them speak. I opened them side by side on the monitor, the color blocks aligning like confessionals. I didn't smile, but something in me recognized the symmetry. Humans crave repetition. It feels like meaning. I let the evidence draw its own lines. The apartment felt like a crime lab with better coffee. I walked room to room with a clipboard, noting details I didn't need but couldn't stop collecting. Her mug still on the counter from 3 days ago. Lipstick ghost on the rim. The faint citrus of her shampoo lingering near the sink drain. Evidence of occupancy. Evidence of absence. I told myself it was about record keeping, but really it was about building a case against the idea that this had been sudden. I checked the public bar patio camera at my sister's place. The switchyard still streams its patio to a public page because Mara forgot to turn it off and then realized it makes people show up more. Anyone can scrub the archive if they know the URL. I knew it. 3 Tuesdays back, I watched Elise in a denim jacket talk to Owen in a ball cap. They kept the touches small, like they knew the sky was watching. Audio drifted in when a wind gust slapped the mic. After the run, he said. I cannot have donor drama, she said. You will have a story, he said, and smiled like he had invented teeth. I paused the frame and studied his smile. It looked like a product. A smile you could order online and return for a refund if it cracked. I wrote it down. Bar patio, talk about after the run. Then I wrote another line. Ask Mara about audio quality policy. Not because I needed it, but because I keep a file labeled, What Nate Did Not Do Wrong. It's mostly dates, regulations, screenshots, cross-references, a map of the narrow path between sanity and justification. The tote by the door coughed up a plastic sleeve from the Riverview Motel. 2 receipts. 1 cash, 1 card. The motel is a row of doors with a new sign and old sheets. The kind of place that looks clean in daylight and haunted after sunset. The receipt times matched calendar gaps. They were not careful. People think their luck is a plan until it runs out. I slid the receipts into a clear folder and labeled them Evidence of Consistency. I believe in naming things precisely. I scheduled my week to intersect theirs. The hospital's charity 10K had temporary bleachers to be inspected. The Riverview had a remediation note flagged months ago. I am a public servant. I serve sometimes with a small smile. There's an art to appearing coincidental. I added the events to my work calendar, wrote short professional notes in the margin, safety evaluation, post-install inspection. The words looked harmless, bureaucratic. Bureaucracy is camouflage. At lunch, I took a slow walk by the hospital loading bay. The asphalt shimmered with heat, oil ghosts dancing on the surface. Owen lifted a cooler down from the rig like a man who knows cameras are always around. He wore his uniform zipped halfway, the kind of casual neatness that reads as trustworthiness to people who don't notice how every hair is arranged by design. He saw me. His posture changed in real time, the set of a man who wants confrontation but hopes it'll stay civil. He took a line straight at me with that forward tilt guys practice on basketball courts when they want to look like velocity. I put one foot back and stood with the wet yellow stripe of the bay under my toes. That stripe matters. It is the difference between public and private and lawsuits and common sense. The security camera sat under the soffit, like an eye that had gotten bored but still paid attention. "You think this is cute," he said. "I think your car is due for maintenance," I said. His face twitched, a second too slow. "What did you put in it?" he said. "Nothing yet," I said. "But I pay attention." "Stay away from her." "I live in the house your mouth used as a prop," I said. "Geography is not a restraining order." He stepped closer, the kind of step a man uses to push his luck and see if it tips. I did not step back. I lowered my voice. "Do you understand one-party consent in this state?" I said. He glanced at the soffit eye. He is not dumb, just used to being applauded for being average plus muscles. He straightened and did not answer. I said, "I have more than one camera." He looked up because vanity is heavy and makes necks weak. He left without another line. A nurse watched from the door with the small half-smile of someone who just found a 50 in the dryer. I went home and wrote it down. Loading bay conversation, no threats, no trespass, camera coverage, keep hands to myself. That line matters. You write it, you live it. The day stretched into a long, strange calm. I worked from home, filed reports, checked structural blueprints for the fairgrounds. Every line on those plans was clean and straight, unlike people. A beam carries load without complaint. People bow, splinter, pretend they're fine until they're not. I traced the lines with my finger, imagining a world where integrity is measurable with a ruler. By evening, I poured myself a coffee I didn't want and sat on the porch. The neighborhood was quiet except for the low hum of lawn mowers and a dog barking 3 houses down. I watched the street light buzz to life, its flicker like a nervous tick. I thought about Elise's words. "We cannot do this out here." But that's where all truth happens. Out here, where the world can see, where witnesses make memory harder to erase. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. This time just one word. Enough. I didn't respond. The silence was my reply. I saved the message, logged it. Unsolicited contact. Documentation is oxygen. Without it, stories rot. I opened the still from my porch camera again. Elise and Owen frozen mid-kiss, her hand on his jacket, his head tilted, the timestamp like a witness signature. I zoomed in until pixels swallowed faces, and all that remained were colors. Gray, red, tan. Stripped of form, they were just data. Love, betrayal, pixels. The hierarchy collapses when magnified enough. The next morning, I drove to the Riverview Motel under pretext of inspection. The manager was a small man with a comb-over and a cough that sounded like a confession. He handed me a clipboard and said, "You'll find plenty wrong." I did. Peeling paint, fire extinguishers past due, alarms disconnected. The place was an argument against trust. Room 8, the one on her receipt, had a window half covered with foil. I took photos of violations, each click a heartbeat. He asked if I wanted to check occupancy records. I said no, but my eyes drifted to the guest log anyway. Familiar handwriting, rounded E's. I didn't touch it. Boundaries matter, even when they bruise. Back in the truck, I dictated notes into the recorder. Structural neglect, Unit 8 exterior frame rot, emergency egress compromised. My voice sounded calm, professional. That's how I know I'm angry, when I sound procedural. At home that evening, I laid out all the evidence on the table. Receipts, notes, screenshots, calendar printouts. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building narrative coherence. Humans crave that, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. The phone rang again. Mara. "You're making waves," she said. Owen came by the bar. I bet he smiled. He asked if the camera was still running. And? I said yes. It's always yes. "Good," I said. "Nate," she said, her tone softening. "What are you doing?" "Writing reports," I said. "Just like always." "Don't mistake being right for being safe," she said. Then she hung up. I sat there a long while, staring at the phone until it dimmed to black. Her words hung around, a kind of warning shaped like care. I added them to the notebook anyway. Document everything, even advice you didn't ask for. Around midnight, I went out back. The air smelled of cut grass and ozone. Somewhere far off, a train sounded its low, mechanical sorrow. I thought about Elise again, her face at the door, the way her breath made those fog circles that bloomed and died. Regret has a shape. It's just invisible until light hits it. I wondered if she was sleeping somewhere with the TV on for company, the way she used to when we fought. I wondered if Owen's car was parked outside her building, its tires clean, his jacket slung over a chair like a flag claiming ground. Then I stopped wondering. Curiosity can rot a man faster than guilt. The next day, I filed my inspection reports early, ahead of schedule. My supervisor emailed a thank you with a smiley face. Bureaucratic gratitude. I deleted it. Smiles don't belong in the record. By afternoon, I took a drive north of town. The highway cut through farmland, flat and wide, the kind of landscape that forgives no lies because there's nowhere to hide them. The sky was clean and sharp. For a moment, it felt like relief. Then I remembered that relief is just a pause between storms. I pulled over by the rest stop, got out, and leaned on the hood. The wind smelled of diesel and earth. I took out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and said, "Entry. Field check, day 3, no violations, no collapse." I closed it. When I got home, I put the notebook back on the kitchen table, added one more line beneath yesterday's notes. Maintain structural integrity. That's what I do. In buildings, in stories, in myself. And if someday the walls come down, at least I'll know which beam failed first. The Riverview visit was by the book. I parked a city truck, wore a city shirt, and carried a clipboard like a shield. The clipboard is armor for bureaucrats. People see it and stop asking why you're there. It makes you official, unapproachable, the way a badge does, but without the weight of law behind it. The manager shadowed me the whole time, a short man with an oil patch on his shirt pocket and a smile that had been through too many apologies. He made jokes about the ice machine taking early retirement and the vending unit not having the ambition it used to. I laughed once to keep the air smooth, but I didn't write that in my report. I checked emergency lights and GFCI outlets and door sweeps. I flipped breakers, opened panels, tugged cords. The hum of the fluorescents was steady, if tired. Wrote them up, gave a timeline. No drama, no story. I did not ask who stayed where. I do not have that badge. That's the thing about rules. People think they limit you, but really they protect you. You stay inside your lane and the road holds. The temptation to ask questions sat behind my teeth like a loose wire. I swallowed it. I walked the exterior, noted cracked sealant, improper signage, fire lane faded to pink dust. When I looked up, the flag outside was caught mid-limp in the afternoon heat. One corner wrapped around the pole as if it didn't want to see. In the lot, the 1968 Mustang sat in space 12, vanity plate ovale. Mint paint, smug tires, chrome like a mirror that wanted attention. The kind of car that doesn't belong in a place like the Riverview unless it's irony or arrogance. A thin dark spot under the nose could have been shadow, could have been drip. I crouched, the asphalt radiating through my pants, and took a closer look. The smell was faint, metallic, a hint of oil but no burn. Maybe coolant, maybe ego leaking. I left a note, courtesy check, possible fluid drip, might be nothing. Signed NH because a town reads initials like they are family. I didn't write the rest, but it lived in the ink. I see you. On the highway out, the Mustang took me like I was a dare. I saw him first in the mirror, that gleam of arrogance closing fast. He passed close enough to make the truck sway, his window down, arm hanging loose like he was too relaxed to obey physics. I didn't flinch. I've been in wind stronger than men. I set my cruise at the limit and watched him bounce through the light at River and 3rd just as the water department spun up the main test. A gust of spray went across the lanes, city mist, fine as judgment. His passenger window crawled down, slow motor, too late. He caught the full bouquet. He hit the next light wet and angry and rolled the window up with the face of a man getting rid of his own mistake. The city traffic cam got it. 2 hours later, someone had pulled the image and posted it. Milford does not waste a meme. The caption was something like, "Local hero gets baptized," and within 10 minutes, the comments were 100 deep. People in small towns think gossip is civic duty. The more creative ones added emojis of whales and buckets. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. Silence is its own statement when you have a reputation for noticing what others miss. Back home, I added a floodlight camera over the driveway. My house now had eyes at smart angles. The wiring hummed in my fingers as I tightened the last mount. Each new camera is like adding another neuron to a nervous system, one that doesn't forget. People like to joke about surveillance. They pretend they are not flattered by machines wanting to see them. I am not flattered. I am careful. I ran the test feed, saw my face in grayscale, a ghost framed by order. The camera saw everything I wanted it to see, nothing more. That's the trick. Technology doesn't protect you if you use it for vanity. At 5:40 on the nose, Elise texted. Harker's Diner, 6. We will talk like adults. She loves that phrase the way some people love scented candles. It's supposed to sound calm, civil, progressive. It really means, I want to narrate the damage without admitting the cost. I read it twice, then left it unanswered. She knew I'd come. The habit of showing up dies slower than love. I showered, changed, put on a button-down that said tax-paying man. No cologne means self-respect without invitation. I brought my clipboard so I would look busy if I had to leave. I checked the mirror before heading out. The same face, but tighter around the edges, a man in maintenance mode. Harker's sat on the corner of Main and Locust, a chrome box from another decade. It smelled of fryer oil and nostalgia. The same waitress who's been there since the Clinton years poured coffee for the same 3 retirees who never left the booth by the jukebox. Elise sat by the window to make the optics pretty. She wanted light, angles, the illusion of reconciliation. She ordered tea. She hates tea. Props matter. She wanted to be seen looking composed. I could tell she'd practiced that posture. The slight tilt of her head, the gentle worry between her brows, like empathy was a pose you could rehearse in a mirror. Her hands shook, which could have been nerves or the performance of nerves. With Elise, it is both. I made a mistake, she said. Her voice was low, curated. I had a night. I do not know what I was thinking. Last night or the others, I said. She blinked, slow, rehearsed surprise. One night, she said. You have a motel sleeve with 2 receipts, I said. Unless you tipped 40%, that sleeve did not fill itself. She stiffened. You went through my things, she said. They were on my porch, I said. After my porch hosted a public employee in uniform, kissing my wife. I did a safety check. She exhaled sharply, the sound of someone losing the illusion of moral high ground. You are cruel today. I am awake today, I said. Different thing. The waitress dropped the check early, her way of giving mercy without getting involved. Elise picked up the mug, her fingers tightening until the china squeaked. I do not want this to be ugly, she said. It already is, I said. We're just agreeing on camera angles. Her eyes glistened, and for a brief second, I almost believed it was regret. But Elise knows what tears buy in this town. They buy leniency. They buy rumor control. I looked at the window and saw the reflection of us, framed in diner glass, a tableau for anyone who cared to drive by. The performance was perfect. I did not say divorce. I did not say forgive. I slipped a folded porch still into the sugar caddy and left cash on the table. The photo would find her later, a quiet reminder of the difference between confession and evidence. I stood, nodded once, polite as a meeting adjourned. Outside, a freelance stringer I recognized from zoning hearings pretended to check baseball scores while his phone camera watched my reflection in Harker's glass. He was the kind who traded in scandal, like others traded in scrap metal. He wore cargo shorts and a press badge that looked homemade. I did not feed him. I do not feed stray animals or stringers. They show up anyway. I paused by my truck, pretending to check a text, and gave him a clear line of my side profile, enough to satisfy him, nothing useful. Control the frame, and you control the story. The drive home was long and quiet. The streetlights flickered on one by one, each one catching the outline of my truck in yellow flashes. The radio stayed off. I didn't need a soundtrack. The silence filled itself with old conversations, her voice on nights when laughter came easy, the sound of our feet on the porch when we first moved in, her saying the lock code aloud like it meant safety, ghost recordings, unrecoverable data. When I got home, the floodlight blinked to life, obedient. The driveway looked like an interrogation room. I stood under the beam, hands in pockets, the night thick around me. Across the street, the Petrowskis' curtains stirred. I knew they were watching. They always watched. Every neighborhood has someone who collects stories like recycling. I gave them a show. Me standing there, motionless, a man under his own light. They'd talk about it tomorrow in the grocery line. He's calm, they'd say. Too calm. People love the idea that calmness hides danger. Inside, I placed the clipboard on the counter and opened my notebook. Date, time, location, Harker's Diner, 6 p.m. One conversation, no incident. I wrote down every sentence I could remember, her tone, her posture, the temperature of the tea she didn't drink. Documentation is the only antidote to revision. I flipped to the earlier page. Riverview, Mustang, courtesy note. Each entry lined up neatly, a slow unfolding of evidence, not emotion. The phone buzzed once more before midnight. A single message. You're not helping yourself. No name. I stared at it, then typed back, that depends on what I'm trying to do. I didn't send it. Some words are meant to stay in draft form, like confessions or apologies. Sleep didn't come easy. I lay there listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the subtle creaks of the house settling. Every sound was cataloged automatically, the way my mind does during inspections. At 2:14 a.m., the floodlight triggered, a stray cat or maybe wind. I watched the live feed. A shape moved across the edge of the frame, too tall for an animal, too soft for a threat. Elise, maybe, or a ghost of her, checking if the code still worked. The lock pulsed red, then green, then red again, a heartbeat in LED. I didn't get up. Let the house answer her for once. In the morning, the porch was empty, except for a small paper bag by the mat. Inside was her mug, the same one from the counter, washed clean, handle chipped, no note. I held it for a long moment, the porcelain cold, and then set it back down where she'd left it. Some evidence you keep, some you let the rain erase. I made coffee and watched the street wake up. Kids on bikes, delivery trucks, the usual choreography of ordinary life. My reflection in the window looked steadier than I felt. The cameras blinked in sequence, patient eyes waiting for motion. Nothing moved that wasn't supposed to. I opened the notebook again and wrote one last line under yesterday's entry. Systems functional. Boundaries secure. Elise, observed, not engaged. Then I closed it, the pen clicking like a latch, and let the morning light fill the room, bright, rude, and completely indifferent. The hospital loading bay sits like a set. Concrete stage, fluorescent top lights, a row of yellow stripes marking the edge between what is city and what is private. It smells like bleach and rubber and something faintly electric, that hum hospitals exhale even outdoors. The dumpsters line the far wall like props waiting to be rolled into place. The air has that institutional chill that belongs to nowhere, neither clean nor dirty, just maintained. He came out mid-shift change, right when the day crew and night crew brush past each other like ghosts changing watch. He saw me and could not help it. Some men cannot walk past a mirror without checking if it still loves them. He veered, cutting across the painted boundary. Elise moved with him, a few paces back, her badge flashing in the sun like a medal she hadn't earned. Her hair was tied tight, official. Reese leaned by the pillar, arms crossed, watching. Reese has the jaw of a man who has taught it lessons with a heavy bag. His silence said he was backup, not referee. "You think you won," Owen said. He had that breathy tightness men get when pride outruns air. "Not yet," I said, "but the scoreboard is tracking." He blinked, trying to find a place to file the sentence. Elise looked between us like she could edit the moment if she just found the right line. Reese uncrossed his arms but didn't move. He didn't need to. Men like Reese don't move unless physics requires it. "Leave," Reese said. Just one word, deep and slow. "I am on a stripe paid for by the city," I said. "I like stripes. They keep lines honest." The nurse unloading supplies from the bay door froze halfway through a box of gloves, eyes flicking between us like she'd stumbled into a TV pilot. The security camera above the bay door blinked red, a patient lens. I had checked the angle last week when I came for an unrelated inspection. It saw everything from the yellow stripe outward. I do not step inside boundaries I can't document. Owen stepped close in that contact sport way, the forward lean of a man trying to prove presence through physics. He reached chest level like he was going to push me back the way you push a door that sticks. I slapped him open hand and short. It made a sound like a small book closing. It was not hard. He is a big man. It spun him a hair, just enough to ruin the rhythm he thought he owned. He lunged, half slip, half fury, and hit a wet patch from a mop. The janitor had just clocked out, but his water lingered. One knee skidded, and he caught himself with both hands in a posture that looked like a man proposing to gravity. The camera saw it, the universe saw it, and gravity accepted. I stepped back with both hands up. Elise hissed my name like it was a curse and a plea. Reese said nothing and put a finger on his nose like he was stopping a sneeze he might enjoy. "It is assault," Owen said, getting up, face red in a place that looked like vanity, not injury. "You charged," I said. I tapped. The floor did the rest. Elise looked at me like she was trying to see a stranger and couldn't manage it. Her badge glinted again, little square of authority that meant nothing here. A nurse watching from the doorway smirked like she had new material for the smoke break. I left, even though it was fun to stay. I do not let fun drive. The parking lot was loud with birds and compressors. I walked slow, not because I was shaken, but because pacing is performance. People read pace the way they read tone. You leave fast, you look guilty. You leave slow, you look in control. I am a student of optics. I got in the truck, checked the rear camera. Owen was standing again, gesturing wide like a man trying to reassemble dignity out of motion. Elise had her hand on his arm. Reese lit a cigarette in the background, exhaling calm smoke like punctuation. I drove off before I could decide whether to feel anything. Back home, I filed the encounter under standard documentation. Time, location, witnesses. Hospital loading bay, 4:22 p.m. Primary participants, Owen Vale, Elise Vale, Reese Chambers. Description: minimal physical contact, one open hand deflection, no visible injuries. Camera coverage confirmed. Additional note: did not escalate. I stared at the last line. Did not escalate. It felt good to write. It was the kind of phrase that sounds like virtue when really it's just control. The night settled in heavy. I cooked something I didn't taste, eggs, toast, the color of compliance. The house hummed with electronics, quiet but aware. Every camera feed checked out, timestamps rolling smooth. I watched the street for a while, saw nothing but routine. Normalcy is a performance too, and I had learned every cue. Around 11, the phone buzzed. Anonymous DM. Check locker 17 at the gym. No signature, no emojis, no attempt at disguise. Just words sitting in the dark like a door left ajar. I stared at it, thumb hovering. Anonymous messages are usually baited hooks. This one tasted like Mara. I could hear her voice in the phrasing. You will go there anyway. Do it clean. I locked the phone and leaned back. The gym was open 24 hours. Locker 17 sat in the corner by the showers, second row. I'd used it once during a safety inspection last year. Broken latch, rust along the edge. I'd written it up and someone had fixed it. Or maybe someone had repurposed it. I tried to talk myself out of it. Anonymous messages meant traps, setups, stories that go viral for the wrong reason. But curiosity and duty share a border. My pulse had that quiet steadiness it gets when something important hums beneath the surface. By midnight, I was in the truck again. The gym sat behind the strip mall, always lit, always empty. I parked under the camera because I don't like being the only one watching. Inside, the night desk guy nodded without looking up from his phone. He had the glazed calm of someone long detached from events. I walked past him, through the machines, the smell of rubber and detergent thick in the air. Locker 17 waited. Its paint was chipped, same as before, but the lock hung open. Inside was a manila envelope, sealed but not taped. I opened it with 2 fingers. Photos, black and white printouts from a security feed, not mine. Elise and Owen, hospital parking structure, same uniforms, same closeness. The timestamp said 2 days ago. They weren't kissing, they were talking, faces close, her hand brushing his sleeve like memory couldn't let go. There was also a note, handwritten. You missed a meeting. No signature. The handwriting was sharp, precise, female. Not Elise's. Hers looped like she was apologizing mid-word. This one had intent. I stared at the paper until the letters blurred. Someone wanted me to see this. Someone wanted a reaction. I folded everything back exactly as found, closed the locker, and wiped the handle with my sleeve. Clean in, clean out. Outside, the parking lot was empty except for a single sedan idling near the exit. Headlights off, engine low. I didn't look directly at it. Looking acknowledges. I got in the truck and drove the long way home, past the mill ruins, where the river caught light from the street lamps, like old secrets surfacing. When I reached the house, I locked the door, checked the feeds again. No new motion, no missed alerts. I set the envelope on the table and stared at it under the kitchen light. The photos meant one of 2 things. Either Elise hadn't stopped seeing him, or someone wanted me to think she hadn't. In Milford, either possibility is entertainment. I brewed coffee I didn't drink. The night outside pressed against the windows, thick with the hum of crickets and distant traffic. The kind of night that feels staged, every sound deliberate. I thought about Mara, my sister, my accidental accomplice. She'd sent the DM, I was almost certain. She'd known I couldn't ignore it. She always said I treated truth like a hobby and evidence like a pet. I texted her. 17 opened. Found footage. No context. She replied 2 minutes later. Then find the context. And be smarter than the story they want to sell. I stared at that for a while. Be smarter than the story. The problem is, once a story starts, everyone wants to be the narrator, and the truth becomes just another prop. I took the photos out again and studied them. The angle was low, security grade. Whoever gave them to me had access. Hospital, maybe. Reese? or one of the nurses from the bay. People like to pick sides when the air smells like scandal. It makes them feel moral. At 2 a.m., I went outside, walked the perimeter of the house. The floodlights followed me in sequence. Every camera blinked its calm red eye. I checked the locks, the mailbox, the street. Nothing moved except a plastic bag skating down the gutter. When I went back inside, I wrote a new entry in the notebook. Jim, Locker 17. Envelope, photos of Elise and Owen. Source unknown, no confrontation, record kept. Then I added a smaller note. Do not assume malice, verify motive. I stared at that line until the ink dried. In my job, you learn that damage isn't always sabotage. Sometimes it's just neglect, the slow decay of things left unchecked. Maybe this was that. Maybe Elise wasn't cruel, just careless. Maybe I wasn't righteous, just thorough. The clock blinked past 3. I set the notebook aside and sat in the dark, the house alive with the quiet sound of itself. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Probably Owen, back on duty, racing to save a stranger while his own life smoldered. The irony wasn't lost on me. I closed my eyes and tried to picture a version of Milford where nobody filmed, nobody posted, nobody cared. A town where mistakes could fade instead of trending. But even in imagination, the cameras blinked red. The world sees everything now. The trick is choosing what you let it mean. When the sun started leaking through the blinds, I wrote one final line before bed. Whatever happens next, keep it clean. The gym sells day passes for 15 and a waiver. The waiver is longer than the Bible and worth less. I read it anyway, line by line, because reading fine print is both habit and sedative. Reese scanned mine and nodded, like the idea of me paying to be near barbells offended him on principle. He has the look of a man who was born inside a gym and only leaves it to remind himself what oxygen feels like. You lifting? He said, his tone somewhere between mockery and curiosity. Depends how heavy the truth is today, I said. He snorted, one sharp sound, the kind of acknowledgement that ends a conversation before it starts. We are not friends. We are two men who like rules, just different sets. His are written on walls in block letters, no chalk, no drops, no excuses. Mine live in statutes and municipal code. Both kinds of rules keep people from pretending chaos is character. The place smelled of rubber mats and detergent. Music thudded low, one of those playlists designed to sound generic enough to offend no one. Treadmills lined up like soldiers on shore leave. Mirrors reflected versions of everyone trying to outstare themselves. I walked past racks of dumbbells, the clang of metal on metal punctuating the air like punctuation in a confession. Locker 17 hung with a dial lock snapped through the eye and not engaged. Carelessness is a religion with more members than any church. I opened it with 2 fingers, the way you touch a snake you are not sure is asleep. The hinges squeaked, a small mechanical protest. Inside were wraps, gloves, a folded sunshade, and a cheap burner phone tucked where a hand would find it by habit. The wraps smelled faintly of chalk and something else, disinfectant or fear. The phone had no lock. The men who buy these often think anonymity is a password. It is not. They believe that because the number came from a kiosk and the cash was crumpled, they are invisible. But invisibility isn't about money, it's about discipline, and discipline is rarer than privacy. I took the phone out, thumbed the power button. It buzzed once, the screen blooming to life like an old fish tank light. The background was plain gray. No contacts, no personal photos, just a list of messages in a thread labeled Dispatch. Schedules. Meet at 3. Use back door. Notes like instructions for a play where everyone forgets it's supposed to be fiction. The gallery held 6 short clips. They were labeled Rescue 1 through 6, though only the first 3 would load. I watched one. Owen knelt by a woman at a fender bender, hand on her shoulder, voice calm, too calm. the kind of calm that knows it's being graded. His lines came out clean, rehearsed, no stumbles, no filler. He asked if she was all right, said help was coming, said her car would be fine, said her pulse was good. It was the kind of performance that would go viral if someone cared enough to film it right. In the reflection of a pharmacy window behind them, I saw Elise's outline off to one side, phone in hand, making a small circle with her fingers. Move in. He moved in. The clip ended just as the siren behind them flared, cutting off whatever came next. Another video showed him at a training drill, talking to a camera he pretended not to see. His smile was that same one I'd seen before, the one that thinks it's empathy but is really ambition with good lighting. The third clip froze halfway through, pixelated into static. The phone wasn't a message system. It was an archive. Somebody's proof. I didn't copy anything. I didn't connect the burner to anything. Evidence without chain of custody is just gossip with better formatting. I powered it down and slid it back into the locker exactly where I'd found it, under the gloves, screen down. Then I snapped the lock through the latch and spun the dial twice, sealing it for them because that is the kind of citizen I am. When I turned around, Reese was watching from the end of the row. He had that look, half suspicion, half boredom. He nodded once, slow, like a man clocking something for later. I walked out, without a word. Outside, the sky had the dull color of wet concrete. My truck sat where I left it, second row near the lamppost, where the light works half the time and the camera works all the time. I put the phone, not the burner, but mine, into the tin filing box I keep in the passenger seat. Then I added a second item, a pair of nitrile gloves still in the wrapper. The box isn't a Faraday cage, but it makes little radios lazy. It's the principle that matters. Paranoia is only madness if it doesn't come true. I drove home slow, windows cracked, radio off. The air outside smelled like rain coming and pavement waiting for it. Halfway down Main, I saw a pair of teens skateboarding across the intersection, holding phones up to record each other's tricks. Everything is footage now. The world runs on playback. My cameras blinked awake automatically, recognizing the plate. Inside, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the sound of the machine still running in the background. I wrote the date and time at the top of my notebook page, then underlined the heading twice, Locker 17. Details followed in neat print. Gym day pass, $15, Reese on duty, locker unsecured. Contents, gloves, wraps, phone, 6 clips. Behavior, recorded. Elise, visible. No physical evidence removed. No chain broken. End of line. At 7 on the nose, my door shook. Porch cam showed Owen, jaw hard, breath loud, his uniform jacket half-zipped, his eyes the kind that confuse righteousness for fury. He pressed the bell like it owed him an answer. "Come outside," he said. "I am outside enough," I said through the two-way. My voice echoed faintly through the speaker. Locker 17 is sloppy. He went still long enough to learn the idea, and then left. Somewhere a dog barked like a laugh. His retreat looked rehearsed, shoulders stiff, back straight, the kind of walk you do when you think someone might still be watching. Which, of course, someone was. The camera caught the whole scene, the stance, the pause, the dog's timing. I filed it mentally as Exhibit Unknown. After he left, I brewed a fresh cup even though I hadn't finished the first. I like fresh starts in liquid form. The house felt smaller but not unsafe. I watched the footage again on my tablet, zooming in frame by frame. Owen's breath fogged in the evening chill, sharp little bursts that matched the rhythm of his anger. Behind him, the Petrowski's porch light flicked on, one curious head peering through lace curtains. They'd seen another episode, and Milford never changes the channel. Jenna posted a blind item about a hospital hero and a charity event that might turn into a pie to the face. She used a stock photo of a Mustang, subtle as a trumpet. The caption was a masterpiece of deniable malice. Sometimes heroes forget who's filming. Within minutes, the comments did the heavy lifting. The locals connected dots faster than any investigator. They speculated, joked, added screenshots of Owen's drenched car from the traffic cam last week. Milford treats rumor like recycling. Nothing goes to waste. I read the thread once, enough to see how fast rot spreads when given light. Jenna's followers added guesses, inside jokes, coded emojis. The town's appetite for scandal was bottomless, and every new detail was a snack. I shut it down before the taste could linger. I've learned to ration satisfaction the way you ration gasoline during a blackout. Too much, and the fire finds you. I wrote the line in my notebook I always write before I get creative. Do not break the law to get payback. Make gravity do it. It's my creed. Gravity is patient and exacting. You don't need to push people. You just remove the floor and let time handle the rest. I closed the notebook and went to the window. The sky had turned from steel to ink. Streetlights hummed in slow rhythm. Across the street, the Petrowskis' TV flickered blue shapes against their curtains. Somewhere down the block, an engine revved and died. Life in Milford kept moving, grinding forward on gossip and habit. Inside my house, every light was exactly where it belonged. The cameras blinked steady red, my quiet audience. I stood there, hands in pockets, and thought about Locker 17, the phone, the clips, the way Elise's silhouette moved just before Owen leaned in. A signal. Always a signal. She liked directing moments even when they weren't hers to direct. I imagined her somewhere now, scrolling through comments, watching her name almost appear and disappear like a secret rehearsed for public release. Maybe she wanted the exposure. Maybe she wanted rescue from the story she built. Maybe she just wanted to see what I'd do when the script went wrong. I finished the coffee, turned off the kitchen light, and let the house breathe. The porch cam's feed glowed faintly on the monitor. For a second, I saw my own reflection in the dark window, eyes bright in the low light, expression unreadable. I looked like a man waiting for something inevitable. Maybe I was. When I finally sat down, the pen still in my hand, I added one more note beneath the last line. If they want attention, give them silence. It weighs more. Then I closed the book, locked it in the drawer, and listened to the quiet hum of the cameras keeping score. His car slept on his street, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. I checked the pattern for a week because I like being right more than I like acting fast. At 3 a.m., streets belong to raccoons and men with plans. I parked 2 blocks away, walked under the kind of moon that makes you believe you are in a movie, and did 3 petty, legal, effective things. Fish emulsion, biodegradable, a cup poured into the cowl intake, rubber ducks zip-tied under the chassis to squeak at low speed, sugar-free cola laid under a piece of aluminum foil on one chrome strip to haze it for a day. Cosmetic, not criminal. A judge would call it childish. A crowd would call it art. At dawn, he started the car, and the smell hit him like a wet handshake. He swore and yanked the window down, and then back up. He pulled into the street, ducks squeaking a dumb song. I eased my truck down the block where he could see me. He did. He followed too close. Milford Hill is a long grade with a rail crossing at the bottom that likes to judge you. I stopped at the red. He braked late, cut the wheel, and kissed a trash skip with his bumper. Nothing broken except pride in the corner of a license plate frame. 10 people filmed because this is America, and we are all archivists of other people's mistakes. By noon, Skid King was trending locally. Someone did a crude drawing of a rubber duck wearing a medic patch. I saved it not because I am proud of my work, but because I love artifacts. 2 days to the 10K. I slept early and clean. I wore my city polo and badge and a hat that says I am not here to joke. Temporary bleachers stood in a few neat lines like silver ribs. I checked bolts, bracing, anchors. Signed off. Taped laminated safety notices on a public board next to the sponsor banners. Elise's face smiled down at my warnings about heat stroke. That pairing was tidy enough to make me believe in a god that enjoys layout. Mara's friend lugged a portable PA to his busking spot across from the start line. At soundcheck, a 5-second clip of audio from a viral video licked out like a match. "Kneel again, Owen. Camera needs your left side." It cut. Tech is messy. People glanced, shrugged. When the starter pistol popped, the PA played the full clip, the one Jenna had already posted and dissected. No visuals, just audio. Words by themselves are naked and mean. The crowd went from cheer to murmur to whistle. A man on the curb shouted a joke about scripts. Owen shoved the man's shoulder. Reese slid in to deflect. I stepped toward them because there are some gravitational fields you do not fight. Reese tried to block me. I cut left and shoulder checked him into a banner pole, not hard. He blinked like a bear swatted by a smaller bear with a clear schedule. Owen squared up with his fists in a way that made me want to laugh. I slapped him once. Same slap, small boom. Cameras loved it. The crowd got loud, the way crowds get loud when they smell shame. Elise darted to the busker and tried to pull the mic. It squealed. She hissed at him. Jenna's live stream caught her profile, the hiss, and the words hospital CEO in a sentence that would not age well. I watched her hand off a flash drive to Jenna in the aid tent shadow later. Smooth move. Give the blogger a story. Try to steer the wave you made. She is good at her job. She forgets the water is stronger than swimmers. I wrote in my book. Flash drive. Ask Mara. Do not confront Elise until the board is set. Mara handed me a flash drive in the bar cooler, breath showing in little puffs. Jenna made a copy before she posts, she said. Says balance, also says numbers. You know how she is. I do, I said. You also know how you are, she said. You are smiling too much. This is survival, I said. This is dessert, she said. Home, air, gapped laptop, no network, no cloud. The drive held a folder called Past. Inside, videos of Owen doing hero moves for a camera operated by a woman whose silhouette looked like Elise. She gave him hand cues. She told a bystander to move left. She angled a bystander like a lamp. She was not leaving me for Owen. She was planning to leave both of us for a job in the city. Her deck already drafted in a folder called New City. Bullet points about crisis wins, growth, donor aura. Her plan had steps like a military op. He was a step, and so was I. I sat with that. It went down like ice. The anonymous Locker 17 tip came from Mara. She admitted it with her chin up. I heard him brag, she said. I knew you would do something dumb without focus. This is me giving you focus. We disagree about dumb, I said. You like this too much, she said. You do not like that I am good at it, I said, and hated the words even as I said them. The night market was in 2 nights. It runs with string lights and food smoke and kids running between tables like they work for the wind. I put in for a vendor tent for the city's extra carbon monoxide detectors. You want a crowd, give them free gear that saves their kids. I would set a battery TV and loop public clips I could defend in my sleep. I would say nothing I could be sued for. I would let Milford be Milford and watch it do the rest. The woman at the clerk desk smiled when I said carbon monoxide giveaway. Public safety is the one phrase that sells itself. I borrowed a folding table and a 10 by 10 tent. I loaded a thumb drive with the porch still, the traffic cam, the charity audio Jenna had already blasted, and the hospital's own wet floor clip they posted to warn about slips, which was proof that institutions can be generous with rope. I stacked detectors 3 high and put a sign that said free, 1 per household. People lined up like shoppers at a doorbuster. The TV played a loop. I did not speak. The porch still drew whispers. That is him. That is her. That is the jacket from the fundraiser. I handed a detector to a man with a paint speck on his nose and asked if he had tested his furnace this year. He said no and looked at the TV twice like it might change if he squinted. Owen arrived with Elise to his right and Reese to his left. They walked like a formation. Owen's face was the shade of a man who has lived too long under bright lights and hates vitamins. Elise spoke low and urgent, PR voice running in economy mode. Reese scanned the angles. I put both hands in my pockets and felt calmer than church. Turn the screen off, Owen said. It is public content, I said. This is harassment, Elise said. It is a loop, I said. Loops do not harass. People do. I am just a man with a TV and a stack of safety devices. Give me my keys, Owen said, because sometimes the brain picks the dumbest hill to die on. I held up a clear bag with a set of Mustang keys. Lost and found, I said. Came into my possession legally by watching a buddy hide them under a rail. I retrieved them to prevent theft. I am returning them to you now, in view of witnesses. You are welcome. He reached. The bag tore. Keys clattered across the table. People leaned in with their phones, recording not because they love justice, but because they love being near it. Owen lunged. I sidestepped. Reese swiped at me and missed because I clicked a contractor strobe under the table with my toe. The scene broke into pictures. Someone shouted about wax on their candles. Someone laughed like a goose. I walked into the blinking light and kept walking. Behind me, I heard Jenna say the words off mic and CEO in the same sentence, and knew it would sound bad online no matter the context. My phone vibrated hard in my pocket. Blocked number. Elise. The mill, she said. Now. Alone. Alone, I said. Sure. I packed the TV and left the detectors with Mara to hand out. She looked at me like a mother looks at a kid who just stuck a fork in a toaster and liked it. I did not look back twice. The paper mill is a shipwreck that forgot to find the ocean. It sits at the bend in the river with windows like eye sockets and a voice that is just wind. The city keeps sensors inside to watch river levels and air quality. I have legal access to those boxes and their breakers. I used it. I went in through the maintenance hatch and flipped lights in a sequence that made a path across catwalks and mezzanines. The place is a maze that rewards the man with the map. My phone fed a Bluetooth speaker my recorded voice so I could talk without showing where I stood. Cheap trick. Effective. Elise came in first. She always goes first into rooms where talking matters. Owen came after, shoulders first. Reese ghosted in with the careful gait of a man who has met old buildings that bite. You wanted a loan, I said, my voice bouncing from the far wall. Here we are. Every echo is a witness. You need to stop, Elise said. You got your revenge. Enough. Almost, I said. This is insane, Owen said. This is geometry, I said. Lines, weights, points of failure. Reese rolled his neck. Come down then, he said. That is a lot of stairs for a man who does not trust railings, I said. I inspected these 20 months ago. Steel remembers feet. Pick the path with fewer memories. They took the obvious stairs. I walked a steel spine above the settling tanks and appeared on a catwalk that could hold a truck even while it trembled like a lie. Owen walked toward me fast to hide the tremble. Catwalks are honest. They tell your knees a truth your ego does not like. He hit the center span and sank a half inch, and I watched his eyes listen to his bones. He kept coming. Keys, he said again, because some minds lock onto their favorite word like a toddler. I dropped the clear bag to his boots. He bent, then straightened, and when he did I had already stepped in, trapped his wrist lightly, laid the ring on the grate, and put my boot on it. I pressed. Soft metal squealed and gave up. The keys broke like a chalk line. He looked at the halves like they were a symbol he had not learned in school. Touch my door again, and I send everything to the licensing board, I said. Not the cops, not the group, the board, the people who decide whether you wear that patch next season. They will love the staged rescue clips. They will love the look on your face when you shove a heckler at a charity run. They will love the wet floor ballet. They will love the burner. They will love the way your friend keeps making things worse. Elise said, We can fix this if you just stop talking. You told me you would come back when you wanted, I said. I decided when you would leave. I clicked a remote in my pocket. A portable projector on a cart below hummed awake and threw a rectangle of light onto the brick. The porch still filled the wall like a hymn. Elise and Owen, black and white and 40 feet tall, timestamp sharp as a knife. The mill made a low throat sound as the wind ran through it. Outside, the night market fireworks started early and lit the windows with pulse beats. The scene looked like someone painted gilt on a church and then set the organ on fire for accompaniment. Reese shifted left, testing distance. He has done this before and knows when talk stops working. He reached for me. I let him take my sleeve, rolled my shoulder, turned the grip into a hinge, and brought an open hand across Owen's cheek one last time. It was not a blow full of anger. It was an exclamation mark. He did not swing back. He finally understood the cameras he could not see. I walked the catwalk to the stairs. At the landing, I turned and spoke in a voice that did not need to be loud. You said you would come back when you wanted. I decided when you would leave. I flipped the light switches off in a line. Dark chased me to the hatch. The projector kept humming. The porch still clung to the wall like a confession that had found the right volume. Outside, the fireworks boomed like someone clapping for the wrong reasons. I stepped into the night that smelled like river and smoke and the aftertaste of being right. It did not taste sweet. It tasted finished.